Alright, what's going on, y'all? So in today's video we are looking at my 10 rental teams for the month. So I'm really happy with how these rental teams turned out. I feel like it's just like one of the coolest rounds of 10 that we've come up with so far. A really great mixture of just like really strong consistent teams and then kind of silly looking teams that, if you know how to play them, I think can play really well. So thank you guys as always for supporting the channel, tuning into the videos recently, and let's start talking about these teams. So this first team is a King Gambit Gouging Fire team that I built to mess around with in my USPA group. I really, as you guys know, I just like building my own versions of teams, and because I do also kind of understand general team synergy, a lot of the teams that I end up building look like other people's versions of teams that, followed the same general format, right? So like my Gouging Fire King Gambit team looks quite a bit like some of the other ones that you'll see around. And in general, I just started with King Gambit Gouging Fire and Chien-Pao because they're, they just have a really good synergy, right? Like with booster energy, speed, Gouging Fire, you can be really fast. You can make sure that you're going to howl before Chien-Pao or Ogerpon or King Gambit, and you kind of have a duo that, if you're starting Gouging Fire, Chien-Pao, for example, is immediately faster than most things that don't have access to Tailwind, right? And if you really need to, you can get that Sucker Punch pressure going and, have a way to also get around Tailwind or use Redirection, right? So there's a lot of versatile things that come along with it, but in general, like having the attack or defense lowering, from Chien-Pao is just really synergizing with the Howl Gouging Fire. So, King Gambit, Chien-Pao, Gouging Fire, really good 3. And then I was originally planning on trying Urshifu Water with Scarf, because, Gouging Fire plus Scarf Urshifu Water is actually pretty deadly, but the homie Charisma, shoutouts Charisma, suggested that, Ogerpon Water with Horn Leech is actually really good with Howl because you get that attack boost. Horn Leech can still do just as much as Wood Hammer used to, and I generally haven't liked using a Horn Leech in the past because I like the damage that you get from Wood Hammer, but the attack boost is really nice, and in general I think Ogerpon Water is actually best with the Horn Leech set, so it works, right? And then after that, you do kind of need some special attackers and some other types of threats. And so, I originally was trying Scarf Fluttermane after switching to Ogerpon, but Charisma also suggested that, why not just go for damage? Actually, I forget who suggested switching to Ogerpon Water. I think that was K-Millie, so shoutouts to Kevin for that suggestion. But the Fluttermane, yeah, I was originally trying Scarf, and then Charisma said, why not just go for Specs? Like, the additional damage is actually kind of nice because even though like you do have all these offensive threats that are physical attackers and you put on a lot of pressure with them, it's also really nice to be able to like come just clean up or start sweeping with Fluttermane. So the Specs is actually really nice, and the only thing is that it does change the way the team plays a little bit, because originally I felt a lot more comfortable leading things like Chien-Pao Fluttermane, where you can click Icy Wind and then guarantee that Chien-Pao or like Gouging Fire will be faster than a lot of things that might have Scarf. That Fluttermane happens to be faster than with Scarf, So it's a really nice synergy, but you do have to play it a little differently with Specs. I think it works. And then, Amoonguss, of course, is just another really good Pokemon. And you kind of can't go wrong with it. Even though we have 3 weaknesses to fire, we have Gouging Fire being 4 times resisting to fire, and then Ogerpon Water, has the ability to deal with fire pretty well as well. not to mention the Sucker Punch pressure, you know. Kind of just, once you click Swords Dance and you have Sucker Punch, like, it really stops your opponent from being able to do what they want to do and, like, consistently, like, knock out the things they want to without, like, thinking really hard about every button they're clicking, right? So, it's a really fun team. You know, I think it turned out really well. And let's go on to the next one. Nice. So this next team is definitely a silly team, you know. This is the first team I had made for the month, and originally I just wanted to try Volbeat because Volbeat's a silly little guy, right? But so like Volbeat is just a prankster Pokemon that, while it's just a little bee, you can actually make it pretty bulky with full bulk investment, Citrus Berry. We have Rock Terra to allow it to be even better, which I actually did use to beat a T-Tar Excadrill team in our last video with this team. And so you have Prankster Tail Glow, which Volbeat is the only Pokemon I think in the current format that gets Tail Glow. So, you know, you can go +3 special attack right away. You can click Sub, click Tailwind if you have the time, maybe even click Tail Glow again, but if you really need to, you just click Baton Pass right away, give the +3 or +6 special attack into Iron Crown, Flutter Mane, or Raging Bolt. If they're behind a sub, like, and +6 or +3, like, even better, you know? And then you can bring out Ogerpon or Indeedee to have your Follow Me support, and priority blocking potentially, to allow Iron Crown to set up or do whatever, you know? And so, it's a really deadly team, you know? Like, it definitely doesn't work all the time, like, let's be honest, but it has the tools to, like, if you can identify that you don't think Volbeat's going to be a good start, like, you can probably think of another lead that's pretty good, right? Like, if it's not Ogerpon Flutter or, like, Ogerpon Raging Bolt, like, I'm sure Indeedee Iron Crown will probably do decently well and do, you know, the things that you don't have a good matchup into, or, like, you know, feel like you can just lead Volbeat and try to cheese, like, and I don't even think it's like that cheese, like, it's definitely cheese, let's be honest, but, like, it kind of works, like, and it's really fun when you can get it off. So, you know, I enjoyed using it. Common leads, of course, are gonna be, you know, Ogerpon Volbeat, Indeedee Volbeat, and if you really need to, you can start Pressure too, like, you can try to make them feel like they have to target Raging Bolt or Flutter Mane, you know, and start like Volbeat Flutter Mane, Volbeat Raging Bolt. You might even click Tailwind turn 1, who knows, you know what I mean? But, like, it's all situational, obviously. So, you know, a lot of the times if you are going for the setup, going to be starting Volbeat plus one of your redirectors or one of your really big threats. Start setting up Baton Pass into the thing that you really want to try to sweep with, whether that's Flutter, Iron Crown, or Raging Bolt. And then you have the appropriate things in the back, like, you know, if you're giving the Tail Glow to Iron Crown, you're definitely going to have Indeedee in the back. You might even start Indeedee Volbeat. You know, I think that's a pretty good lead sometimes. So, I think I already said that. But anyways, if you're, you know, Baton Passing into Raging Bolt, you're probably not going to always want to have Indeedee come out because you want those +3 Thunderclaps to be able to, you know, hit if you need them to. And, yeah, so it's a fun team. You know, the Scarf Flutter Mane at +3 is obviously really scary as well. So, I really enjoy how this team shaked up, but it's definitely a silly team. So, going on to our third team, this is another one where I kind of just tried to make my own variant of a core that I find interesting, and it's really not that much different than other teams we've seen pop up that are kind of similar, because, you know, I know how to make a good team that synergizes, so and I know what the good Pokemon are. So, the main plan here was that I started with a Pelipper Archaludon team, and Pelipper Archaludon Landorus is really good. King Gambit is also really good on that because, you know, in the rain you take less fire damage, and, you know, King Gambit's just, like, really good positioned in the format right now, as, like, one of the biggest threats and, like, good at taking hits. from most things, you know. And then Rillaboom, same deal kind of, you know. It's a grass type, so it's does different damage than King Gambit is able to, but it thrives by being in the rain because it's a grass type, right? And originally I think I was trying a Mungus and like Ogerpon water or Urshifu water. And then this was the version that I started making when I was testing the global challenge, because, you know, if you want to cover for everything, you need to stop priority, which is like Farigiraf. You need to stop Psyspam, which is Rillaboom and King Gambit. You need to stop Sun, which is the Tornadus side of the team. And I felt like without Farigiraf, like a Chien-Pao D-Knight team or something like that was actually able to deal with my team pretty well. So I opted to, you know, go for that Farigiraf. We actually have a throat spray Farigiraf here with Water Terra Blast. So, you know, I wanted this to be a real silly build here, at least Farigiraf wise. Like, I actually don't use Farigiraf that often when I'm using this team, but there's a lot of instances, especially if you ever go up against a Chien-Pao team where you're like, yeah, like, okay, so let's like, I might even just start Torn Farigiraf and click freaking Tailwind Hyper Voice, like, you know what I mean? And then just bring out Archer Landorus in the back, you know, like, it's fun. I really enjoy this team. And so, you know, common leads are definitely, like, I think Torn Landorus is actually one of the best leads in the format right now. Like, you just click Tailwind Protect. If you have a bulky Lander or Tornadus, even better, because you can probably live things, right? You click Tailwind Protect, Rain Dance, Sandsear Storm. Some people are running Substitute Landorus. I think that's really good as well. But, you know, on a Rain team, I like Landorus having the Sandsear Storm. And while I do think that there's a lot of instances that Pelipper's good, you know, most of those instances can be mitigated by either having Rain Dance or Rillaboom. So, you know, it's fine in my opinion. I, in testing, felt like having the immediate Tailwind is a lot better than having Pelipper. So, like, there is give or take. You have to be honest. Like, Pelipper has Weather Ball, Pelipper has Hurricane. It's a threat. It's a big threat. And, like, having the switch in Rain is it's a different utility than the manual Rain, right? But I like the way this team's shaped up. I think it's a lot of fun. And, you know, Rillaboom Farigiraf also going to be a good lead, obviously. Rillaboom King Gambit, so you can click Fake Out Swords Dance. I don't really see myself starting, like, Rillaboom Arch that often, but, like, you can. You know, you can technically start Torn Arch. But, you know, Landorus plus anything is also just a huge threat, or King Gambit plus anything, so fun team. And we have seen it do very well, so going on to I promise it doesn't have low battery. Going on to our fourth team. This is by far the most cheesy team for the month. Like, this team was actually built for a Reg F format that doesn't allow Paradox Pokemon or Legendary tiers. So, our good friend Zach, XC X20, who has his own channel, kind of like came up with this format with, I think, another person. If not, he came up with it himself. And the idea of the format is just to give Pokemon that are in a lower power bracket a better chance to shine by just removing, you know, anything Paradox or Legendary, like tier and above in the current formats that we're playing. So he calls this a Reg A++ format. I've been calling it Reg F or Sub-Legends because you can't use Legends or Paradox Pokemon. But I was actually able to win the Reg F Sub-Legends team this month. Team tournament, this month with this team. And I don't actually think it's a perfect team. In fact, the homie that we got that got second place in the tour had a team that was pretty good against this team. And the only reason that he didn't win was that there was no top cut. So I was able to like end up having the highest resistance by the end of the bracket. But if it went to top cut and I had to face him in finals, I would have had to really rely on my skills as a player to beat his Psyspam team, because like while I have Slowbro, you know, you do just have to play really carefully. And yeah, I mean it was like a weakness policy, Armorogue, and like Palafin, like crazy stuff. Like sure I can set up Trick Room, but it's like probably the only thing I can do, and then he can just reverse it if he really wants to. So anyways, I actually do think like in testing I was able to beat multiple like regular Reg F teams with this. So it's not that you can't bring this on ladder and see good success, but like you need to play carefully, okay? That's all I'm saying. Like you need to like get a feel for how this team plays. Like if you really need to, you start fake out Trick Room, you know, if not, you might find yourself occasion to start, you know, follow me Goldango, follow me Corviknight, follow me Ursaluna, something like that, right? Follow me Slowbro. And so you have some really good utility. The Covert Cloak Slowbro, I ultimately just felt like covers for the most things, especially when you consider that you want Life Orb Ursaluna. So, like, Covert Cloak Slowbro, perfectly fine. It still does what you need it to, basically, which is good. Excuse me, I got hiccups for a second. And then, while I did consider giving Slowbro Expanding Force to kind of counter opposing Psyspam, I just felt like, why not go for Psychic? Like, I don't know. I mean, it does a little more damage. It does more in more instances, but like, if your opponent does have Psyspam, Expanding Force is better, and it technically, like, Psychic only hits, you know, 9/8 of the amount of damage that, you know, E-Force does or whatever, right? So, anyways, you know, I think it works, and the idea, again, of the team in general is just that Pokemon like Goldango and Corviknight are actually incredibly well positioned in a format like this, because one of the biggest threats is Ursaluna. So, because Ursaluna is not technically considered a Paradox or a legendary, we have the ability to use it, and it's just, you know, really good. Especially the you know, the Guts one was just as good in this format, right? But you know, the Mind's Eye one, because it does get around the ghost types and does like incredible burst damage, right? Like you do need a way to counter it. And so Goldango, I mean, Goldango doesn't necessarily counter it as well as Corviknight. It's really Corviknight that's the big counter, but like even then even then, like a Life Orb Blood Moon does like 70% if you normal Terra, so it's pretty ridiculous. But in testing, basically, I just found that Corviknight and Goldango were incredibly positioned amongst all the potential threats that you might find in the format, and we were able to go 4-1 in the tour, so, you know, well, technically we went 3-1, but, yeah. So, a lot of the times you are going to be starting Magmortar Goldango, Rillaboom Goldango, one of those plus Slowbro, you know, Rillaboom Slowbro, Magmortar Slowbro. And then once you get the board position in your favor, kind of just setting up with your threats. But, you know, if you do start like Follow Me plus Goldango, you can then bring out Ursaluna, and you have Ursaluna and Goldango on the field, which are both like commanding respect, right? So you can do things like that. And I just felt like in general, I don't know, like the team has really good synergy. You know, Fire, Water, Grass, Core, Steel types, normal damage, ground damage. You know, it's good. It's got pretty much everything you need. So, sorry, I totally rambled there. I didn't explain that well. It works, you know, it works. Going on. going on to our 5th team of the month, we've got the team that I brought to Charlotte Regionals. So basically, I was facing an Ursaluna Farigiraf team on Showdown, when I was testing for Charlotte Regionals, and I was like, damn, I'm kind of getting wrecked by this right now. So I was like, all right, let's build my own version of Farigiraf Ursaluna. And I had originally been testing a version that was almost exactly like one of the top versions, right? With Ogerpon Water, Urshifu Dark, and what's his name with Incineroar, right? So basically, sorry, I had to take a second there. This version, I kind of ended up just doing like my own little adaptations of the team to play with what I felt slightly more comfortable with, but it's I just didn't make like the correct adaptations, you might say. So I didn't think about the fact that by taking Incineroar off the team for Iron Hands, taking Ogerpon Water off for Ogerpon Fire, Urshifu Water on for Urshifu Dark, you're ruining your matchups into Psyspam, Dondozo, and Urshifu Water, right? So all of those matchups become incredibly more difficult. Sure, you have Iron Hands. Sure, you have Electric Terrain. I know I haven't been necessarily going through every one of my moves while we've been looking at the teams, but it's there's so much to look at for me. My mind just races and just starts talking, you know what I mean? So I appreciate y'all, and I know you guys can look at the teams. I don't need to say everything, right? But Clear Amulet Iron Hands is just in a pretty good position in the format. I actually think AV Iron Hands is still perfectly fine, but on a team like this, and in a tournament, Clear Amulet Iron Hands is generally in a really good position. And so because we have Electric Terrain, we have the ability to start Farigiraf Iron Hands pretty freely. We can ward off any Amoonguss problems, we can set our own Trick Room, and then we can safely just do what Ursaluna and others want to do, right? And then after the Trick Room ends, you still have Flutter Mane, you still have Ogerpon, you still have Urshifu. And so, I mean, even when Trick Room ends, it's you basically, the way that you play the team is, if your opponent has a fast team, right, you set up Trick Room, you do as much as you can in Trick Room to take out all their fast threats. Once their slower threats are left, Trick Room ends, and then you can bring out Flutter, Urshifu, Ogerpon, things like that, and just continue to exert pressure and damage. While, Ursaluna's still alive, they have to deal with that too, right? So it's a really threatening team, and if you don't feel comfortable setting Trick Room, you do have those fast threats to kind of dupe them out with. And the Booster Speed Flutter, the Ogerpon, the Urshifu, they all do really well, obviously. The Clear Amulet Iron Hands doesn't need Trick Room to be good. And in fact, we also have the Imprisoned Farigiraf, which you feel like wouldn't be as good in open team sheet formats as it is, but it definitely is, because your opponent knows that you have it, and I'm still gonna click it. It's I'm still gonna click it. You know what I mean? So it really works. I was able to use Imprison to success in multiple of my matches. I was able to use Electric Terrain to multiple success in my matches, but in general, the adaptations that I made to the team did make the team noticeably worse into Psyspam. And I think that was my really only bad matchup, but basically I ended up going 5-3, technically 5-4, but I had to auto forfeit round 1, so I like saying 5-3 because it makes me feel better. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I mean, it was a good run. I think the team is deadly, and it's definitely a consistent team. It's just you know, you do have to be wary that, like, I made some suboptimal changes that do make certain matchups more difficult. Things like Dondozo, things like Psyspam. And it's not good to have weaker matchups into those things, but we do. And, you know, it's not that you can't play around them. I did beat a Psyspam team, but I also lost to a Psyspam team, you know, even after clicking Electric Terrain, just because I I didn't prioritize taking out a Mungus. And so, like, I tried to target something that was next to a Mungus. It protected. A Mungus clicked Pollen Puff. I didn't do anything that turn when I could have double targeted a Mungus. And, like, so I had to double target the Amoonguss the next turn. It still lived the hit. And I was like, no. It's like, this is not going well, okay? And so I could have avoided all of that by just targeting Amoonguss originally the first turn. And then it would have gone down the turn after they protected with me being able to, you know, deal with the other threats, right? So going on to our second half of teams. This, I would definitely say, is like the second worst team for the month. You know, like the Slowbro team, I think, while it looks deadly and you can play it well, you know, it does fall a little short to power creep, right? But this team here, I actually think can be really deadly if you know how to play it. It's just, you know, I didn't see good success in the rounds of matches that I tried with it like a couple days ago, and it kind of discouraged me a little bit. But like on Showdown, the team was doing great. I actually do need to fix there's gonna be a new rental code for this. I need to fix this team because I never did the IVs on Ambipom. So there'll be a new rental code for this, but the team's gonna look the same. So in general, we actually have a Calm Mind, Stored Power Cresselia with Trick Room. It does not have Lunar Blessing, so you do need to be aware of that. However, we do have Pollen Puff Dipplin, so, you know, you can click Trick Room, you can click Calm Mind, you can bring out Dipplin, you can click Pollen Puff, you can also bring out Heatran, and you have more accurate Magma Storms and Heat Waves. So that was kind of one of the ideas of the team, was that, like, I basically just tried to come up with a core that covers each other, right? And so that core ended up being Heatran, Dipplin, and Sylveon, where each one of them has weaknesses that the other is able to address incredibly well. Dipplin is weak into Fairy. Heatran beats Fairy. Diplin's weak into Poison. Heatran beats Poison. Sylveon's weak into Poison. Heatran beats that. Sylveon's weak into Steel, sorry. Heatran beats that. Heatran is weak into Ground. Dipplin beats that. Heatran is weak into Fighting. Sylveon beats that. Heatran is weak into Water. Dipplin beats that. So you have you have a core where everything checks its other's threats, right? And so as long as you do, technically the problem is that they're all slow, right? So like you need to set up Trick Room, and then once you're in Trick Room, they're all covering for each other. But like that's not really as good as, you know, being able to just not be in Trick Room, right? And one of the things that is nice about them all is that they are bulky enough and threatening enough that technically you don't need Trick Room, right? Like Heatran is fine outside of Trick Room. Sylveon, if they don't take it out, is literally just going to blow their team up. Diplin's really bulky, right? And so you do actually have the ability to withstand not being in Trick Room, especially considering that you have Fake Out Last Resort. But this team does really like Trick Room. And so a lot of the times you're going to be starting like Ambipom Cresselia, Ambipom Sylveon. I wish Dipplin got Rage Powder. I don't know why I thought it did. But anyways, yeah, you want to try to set Trick Room and then bring out your threats. You know, Araquanid is also just You know, it has Wide Guard. That's kind of the biggest thing it has going for it, and it's also good in Trick Room, and has the ability to do massive damage with Liquidation and Leech Life. So, fun stuff. You know, I like I said, it's not like an amazing team, but you know, it's in testing. It actually does work like pretty darn well, and if anything, I think the reasons why I wasn't able to make it work when I brought it to cart is that I was trying too hard to set up Cresselia into matchups where it just wasn't working, or like forgetting to click Pollen Puff into myself, because you know you kind of do want to remember that. So anyways, fun team. Let's go on to the next one. This next team is actually a better version of the Volbeat team. So I did try kind of showing the process of team building a little bit with optimizations. And so, you know, I said to myself, okay, like Iron Crown Psyspam, obviously really fun. How can we make that other team better? And so I said to myself, why not try Indeedee Iron Crown with the offensive Indeedee, because I've been really liking offensive Indeedee. Last time we tried offensive Indeedee with Fairy Terra, or I mean with Psychic Terra instead of Fairy Terra, and there was multiple instances where we felt like it would have been nice to be able to Fairy Terra. On this team, I've actually felt multiple times like it would have been nice to just have the Psychic Terra again and be able to literally just dunk on everything. So, kind of here or there, if we're being honest. I do think that the Psychic Terra Specs Psyspam Indeedee is an incredibly interesting threat in the format, but to be honest, like the Fairy Terra does get you out of certain problems, like, you know, things like Heyoo that just want to click Snarl, or like Dark Pulse, right? Things like Urshifu Dark, you know, who's definitely going to click Wicked Blow. And then, you know, he should know that you have Dazzling Gleam, but, you know, you have Dazzling Beam, so it's fine. You have Specs Dazzling Gleam. So, common leads on this team are going to be Torn Indeedee, Indeedee Iron Crown, Torn anything else, you know, like Torn Regidrago, Torn Ogerpon. Sometimes you start Indeedee Regidrago, right? But in general, like, starting Tornadus is going to be one of the best things that you can do, because you do want to keep the speed in your favor. And, you know, once you have Tailwind set up and you've already started just doing massive burst damage with Regidrago or Indeedee, then you can bring out Iron Crown, Ogerpon, Incineroar, right? And, you know, they also, like, command massive respect from your opponent. And so, it's a really fun team. I actually ended up using Max Attack Incineroar, which I did by accident, but it's fine, you know, like, it just means do damage, like, but and so, let me think, what was I trying to say? Like, I feel like we've seen a very similar version of this team pop up, where we've seen the core of Indeedee, Iron Crown, Regidrago, Torn, and Ogerpon Water being used by other people to very good success. Obviously, they're not using Specs Indeedee, but my general idea when I was starting this team was that, like, we already know Goldango Regidrago is really good, so why not try to replace the Goldango side of the team with Psyspam, Iron Crown Psyspam, basically. So you still have that Steel plus Dragon synergy, and now you're just doing Iron Crown Regidrago instead of Goldango Regidrago. Like, it's a kind of straightforward, fun, good, threatening thing to do, and I'm glad with how the team turned out. It's pretty deadly. But let's go on to the next one. Start rounding this one off. We've got 3 more teams. So this here is actually the team that I brought to the Global Challenge. You might call this the final version of the Archaludon team, where I basically just took our Chowdon off for Primarina, and then I switched Farigiraf back to a normal Farigiraf, because Primarina is basically doing what Farigiraf was doing. So, you know, the main idea of this version of the team is you have Rain Dance, you know, so you can click Rain Dance, Hyper Voice, Rain Dance, Sandsear Storm, Rain Dance to make King Gambit and Rillaboom better, and you have Tailwind, but this version of the team actually really likes Trick Room like more than the other one does, because with Primarina you're kind of like decreasing the speed brackets of this team even more, and so this team does thrive with Trick Room. I actually think it doesn't need Trick Room still, which is really good. I find myself also sometimes just leading like Torn Primarina, Torn Landorus, clicking Tailwind, starting to do damage. I actually think that Farigiraf Torn is a really fun lead as well, because like Tailwind Farigiraf still outspeeds a decent amount of things. You have Taunt Pressure, you have Psy Shock Pressure, and this version of the team is a version that actually does cover from pretty much anything that you will face in a closed team sheet format. So this is an incredibly good version. We went 6-1 in the GC. I should have played more. Kind of my fault. I just, you know, didn't feel like playing, I guess, would be the way to put it, but life stuff, I guess. And so, you know, like I was saying about the last version of the team, you can stop Psyspam, Priority, Amoonguss, Sun, Trick Room, things like that. You know, I mean, you can stop pretty much any. I think I said Dondozo too, because yeah, we have Hayes Primarina. So, what was I? The one last thing that I do want to mention that's different about this team, that's a really good synergy, is that versus Amoonguss, you have Farigiraf and Rillaboom. So Farigiraf and Rillaboom can't be touched by Amoonguss, like, at all. You have Safety Goggles Farigiraf with Psyshock. You have Rillaboom being a water type. And so you can literally just click Trick Room right in front of Amoonguss's face and then just click Psyshock. Like, you know, it's good, you know, it works really well. You can also U-turn them and then like bring in Tornadus and click Taunt if you really need to, and then like bring in Primarina or something. So there's a lot of different ways to play this team, but in general, we're actually going to be seeing this team in a video tomorrow. So you'll have a chance to see how I was able to go 6-1 with it and the way the team plays. Like, even in the one I lost, I could have won if I just sucker punched their Overpalm, and I just didn't think about it because I was afraid of them clicking follow me, basically. So that's one of the mental games, but really fun team. And we kind of already know how it works based on talking about it already in some ways. So second to last team for the month is going to be a very scary looking team. We've got Gloom. How could you not be threatened when you see Gloom, my guy? So we've got a Gloom team with Tinglu, Riolu, Roaring Moon, Muk, and Smeargle. This is definitely the cheesiest looking team for the month by far. And my suggestions about the team are, don't feel like you need to lead Smeargle and Muk. They just like don't work as often as you really think they're going to. However, Riolu plus Tinglu works. Riolu plus Roaring Moon works. And Gloom is just incredibly annoying because with Eviolite, with Toxic, Substitute, Strength Sap, and Leech Seed, you kind of just ensure that as long as your opponent doesn't have really good damage into it, it just sits on the field and like forces them to switch out over and over, or just start taking a bunch of damage while like having trouble chipping away Gloom. So it's really fun, honestly. Unfortunately, it does feel a little bit like a team that functioned better on Showdown than it did in Cart, but mainly I think that's because I've been having trouble getting the Smeargle Muk side of the team to work on Cart, and Gloom works incredibly well with the Muk side of the team compared to the Riolu Tinglu side of the team. Like, Gloom's not bad on both sides, but once you've got Muk set up, when you bring out Gloom, it's like two Pokemon that if you don't deal with them, they're just gonna destroy your team. So the two main comps of this team are basically Smeargle Muk with Tinglu Gloom in the back, and then like Riolu Tinglu or Riolu Roaring Moon with Gloom Muk Tinglu whatever in the back, right? You generally are not going to be bringing Smeargle to one of those matches, but yeah. So I mean, like if you're not starting Smeargle Muk, there's really not that much reason to start Smeargle, except that it has Follow Me, Spore, and Fake Out, and Final Gambit. So I actually really like Final Gambit Smeargle because something people will try to do in order to beat this is just like avoid Smeargle and just target Muk, and you can just click Final Gambit, and like Final Gambit will actually kill an Ogerpon if they don't have any HP investment. So you can just one-shot Ogerpon with Final Gambit. Like, it's incredibly rude, and I love it a lot. So I think we actually explained this team pretty well. Besides, let's just kind of talk about the moves, right? So, you know, Riolu does have Feint, Quick Guard, Screech, and Coaching, so you can lower the opponent's defense to go with Coaching even more. You can click Feint so they can't protect once you've got your Pokemon set up and threatening. And you have Quick Guard to stop Fake Out or Taunt, which is even better. But you also have Dark Terra if your only concern is Taunt, and you feel like, you know, being able to click Coaching right away will just win you the game, right? So I actually think because we've seen Booster Attack Roaring Moon becoming such an incredible threat again, Booster Speed Roaring Moon plus Coaching Riolu it's an insane threat. Like, because you have Booster Speed and you have a +1 attack and a +1 defense, which Roaring Moon's worst stat is its defense, basically. So like, I find myself coming into really good synergies where you can put Riolu with a Pokemon that likes to attack but has bad defense, and it's, you know, something like Roaring Moon just benefits incredibly well from Coaching support. So that's as much as I want to say about the team. You know, Snarl, Poison Terra, Tinglu with the Coaching support is just also an incredible wall, and not only that, but you can click Earthquake and you can sweep. So last team for the month, let's try to wrap this video up. Thank you guys again who support the channel and who tune into the videos. This is the team that I built with Gouging VGC. So I basically, you know, after I got first place in the Reg F Sub-Legends Tour, me and Gouging were talking about building a team together. We hopped in a virtual chat, and Gouging said he wanted to build a Chestnut team. And I was like, okay, like, to be honest, Chestnut kind of trash, but there's ways we can make it work, right? So we need to come up with a Fire, Water, Grass core. Because Chestnut is slow, we need Trick Room, and we're gaming, right? And so, like, you don't technically need Trick Room, but if not, like, Chestnut's literally only clicking Wide Guard. That's all it's gonna, like, I mean, you don't want it to, like, have Terra in order to, like, play, if just because you're, like, not using Trick Room, right? And so, like, even though it does often only click Wide Guard when I've used it so far, like, having the Trick Room just benefits it, like, way more than just treating Chestnut like it can just be good on its own merit, right? And so I basically brought up to Gouging that I've been testing Braxien, because Braxien is actually a really good Trick Room user. It has a very unique tool set, you might say. It has Will-O-Wisp, Helping Hand, and Trick Room all at the same time. And so, you know, I think, like, one of the other things that does that is Mimikyu, right? But the thing that I like about Braxien is that it's a mono fire Pokemon. So in front of something like Heyoo Flutter Mane, you know, Braxien doesn't care. Like, it just clicks Trick Room. And so you can start like Blastoise Braxien in front of like Flutterfish and see incredible success. You can start Blastoise Braxien in front of Tornadus and you can see incredible success. I honestly Dark Terra Braxien a lot on this team, and it doesn't even matter. Like it feels perfectly fine every time I do it. Like it never feels like I'm being disbenefited by Dark Terra and Braxien. So you basically like you set Trick Room. They start trying to like deal with your Pokemon. A lot of the times they'll have a physical threat and you can just Will-O-Wisp it. And that's one of the ways that I've enjoyed using the team the most. That like, you know, the opponent in one of the matches that we went in started Torn Urshifu Water, right? And you click Dark Terra, you click Fake Out Trick Room. Next turn you Will-O-Wisp the Urshifu and you just like click Muddy Water or Ice Beam or something, and then you bring out Chestnut or Ursaluna. Something I will say is that most of the time you do want to follow the game plan, and the game plan is rely on your big damage. So if you're starting Braxien Blastoise, you bring out Ursaluna after one of them goes down. You don't bring out Chestnut right away. If you're facing Psyspam, maybe yes, you bring out Chestnut. But like, I lost a match versus a Torn Ursh team because I was like, sure, just bring out Chestnut, instead of, you know, realizing that I can literally just click Helping Hand Hyper Voice or Muddy Water Hyper Voice depending on the situation. And like, what do? You know, like, so you do want to remember that like, if you start playing too leniently and being like trying to cheese your opponent, like you're not actually gonna see good success. Like, while this team looks cheesy, it's actually not. Like, you're not cheesing your opponent by starting Blastoise Braxien. You're starting like an incredibly good bulky duo that has the ability to get the setup that it wants to, and then to chip down your opponent while setting up for the actual threats in the back, which are Ursaluna, Chestnut. After Trick Room ends, you have Dark Terra Urshifu with Scarf. You have Booster Speed Flutter Mane. And so I actually really like the dual mode way this team operates. And if you have ever used a dual mode team, you also know, possibly, hopefully, that one of the best ways to actually use dual mode is to start one of your fast Pokemon plus your Trick Room user. So you might find yourself starting Braxien Flutter Mane, Braxien Urshifu, and then you use Urshifu or Flutter Mane to do incredible burst damage while just setting up Trick Room. And if they don't target Urshifu, they're just taking damage without taking out Urshifu. And there's a really good chance Braxien's just going to live anyways and click Trick Room. And then the next turn they have to say to themselves, okay, so like now we're in Trick Room, Urshifu's fast, but, well, now it's slow, but it's still an Urshifu. Like, I've had plenty of times where I just clicked Trick Room and just didn't withdraw Flutter Mane or Urshifu and just kept doing damage. And like, they think that because now it's slow, they just don't have to target it. And it's like, no, like, I'm still just gonna click Wicked Glow. Like, because for me, I'd rather not have to, like, swap out and potentially take too much damage on Ursaluna on the swap out, right? So, like, you know, if you don't target Urshifu, I'm still just clicking Wicked Blow. If you do target Urshifu, you take it out for me. I say, thank you, sir. You know, we bring out Ursaluna and we do Ursaluna things. So, like, I actually really love the way this team turned out. Again, shout outs to Gouging VGC for helping build the team. And some kind of last minute changes were just that I felt like we originally had a Throat Spray Ursaluna and Life Orb Chestnut. The Life Orb initial burst damage on Ursaluna is important. There was a game where Helping Hand Hyper Voice would have double O-code my opponent's Torn Urshifu, and because I didn't have the Life Orb, I was not able to get the KO, and we almost lost, but fortunately our opponent did not have Protect Tornadus, and we were able to take out Tornadus before Trick Room ended. So it's, you do need to like kind of think about those small adjustments, and ultimately one of the reasons that it really works is that Clear Amulet Chestnut with Fire Terra is actually incredibly good into most Intimidators that you're seeing in the current format, because it's, I mean, it's really just or Incineroar, right? So I really like the team. I'm really glad with how it turned out. Like I said, I'm really glad with how all these months teams worked out. Like, if you look through the scope of them all, they all just look so cool and deadly. We've got our really strong teams that you can clearly tell are just like meta good teams. And then you got this, where you're like, huh? And then you face it or you use it and you're like, hold on. This is kind of hidden. So really fun. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. You guys are the homies. We appreciate you. And, you know, I mean, sure, feel free to suggest things for next month. I mean, I know one of the homies wants me to make an Espeon team, but, like, to be honest, Espeon's kind of trash. And, like, he knows. You know, we know. We're us boys. Like, but I will make teams that anyone suggests, like, potentially, but if you suggest something that is really bad that I just don't think I can make work, I'm probably not going to do it. So, anyways, thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoy the teams, and let me know if you try them. So, have a good one.